Welcome everyone. Today I'll be taking on a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon FireRed, but with a twist. I can't use Pokemarts, or use any money for that matter. So essentially, I'm gonna have to beat this game with only the items I find on the ground.
Ooh, piece of candy.
With that said, the full list of rules can be found in the description below, but essentially, it's permadeath. I can only catch a Pokemon if they're from a new route, and I can't use bag items in battle. Now let's stop wasting time and kick things off. We begin our journey by meeting our rival, who I, like any mature adult, dub Turd L. Anyways, given how I don't know how much help I'll get from encounters, since I can't buy Pokeballs, I go for the most bang for my buck and pick Bulbasaur to get an edge on the first two gym leaders. Professor Oak gives us 5 Pokeballs and we make our way out of Pallet Town. On the way to the first gym, I decide to catch some Pokemon while the capture rate is low, and cop a Pidgey named Vegeta, and Caterpie the Caterpie. Predictably, Vegeta was a jerk and took 2 balls to capture, making me a tad worried about the potential reinforcements later on. Things get a little tricky dodging poison, as Little Root Forest is littered with Weedle who have an affinity for being toxic, throw in my inability to buy antidotes, and this is just a great time. However, another pro of picking Bulby is that we can get through here without worrying about this, as his poison typing makes him immune to poison status. Anyways, we make our way out of the woods and proceed to the first gym. Along the way, find an antidote, Pokeball in the forest, and by spamming A in the suspiciously light colored patch of grass, I get another one. Oh, speaking of grass, Brock's team was not too keen on it, as Bulby whipped him in the shape and I'm pretty sure they're vegan now. As a celebration, my mom buys me a pair of Air Force Ones, and the team officially has drip. Making our way to Route 3, I decide to test my luck again and run into a Nidoran. I, luckily, catch it in a single ball and name it Kingpin. In the process, Caterpie gets poisoned. Being stingy, I try and make it back to the Pokemon Center without using our soul antidote, and barely make it back with 4 HP. Once healed, I make my way towards Mount Moon, finding a Persian berry in the middle of a suspicious rock formation a little down the route. I swing by a nearby Poke Center before the cave and get offered a Magikarp, but I can't buy it. Once again, thanks to my non-existent wallet. I did not realize how realistic this was going to be. Oh man. Upon entering the mountain, I stumble upon a Zubat, and while tempting, I pass on this encounter given how I'm already running low on Pokeballs. Although, it's all cool, as the team still gets a massive power-up. How, you might ask? Well, hidden in the depths of Mount Moon is a Moonstone, and little old Kingpin here evolves a Nidorino at level 16. With the help of our Lunar Rock, Kingpin can even take a step beyond that to become a Nidoking. Needless to say, having a fully evolved Pokemon this early in the game is huge, even at the cost of his move pool essentially being erased. In the case of the King though, it's not like he was really missing out on much. If he's gonna help, it's likely gonna be through top moves like TMs. Oh, and look at that! A conveniently placed move tutor just outside Mount Moon who can teach Kingpin Mega Punch. Oh, and how even more convenient that my rival and his Charmander are nearby for me to test his move on. How lucky for me. On a real note, getting Kingpin fully evolved probably saves me during this rival battle, as his absurd bulk for this stage in the game essentially allows me to overpower a Charmander and a Pidgeotto that would have otherwise struggled to fight with the rest of my team. Anyways, I beat up a bunch of punks who were blocking a bridge and make my way to Bill's lab. Apparently he made the PC system, so I wanted an autograph, but he isn't in there, so I turn around and leave. On to Misty. This battle ends up being a little underwhelming. I expected her Starmie to have some psychic moves to counter the plethora of grass poison types available up to this point. Lo and behold, her Starmie doesn't have any such moves for some reason. So, with nothing really to fear, we make light work of yet another gym thanks to a little bit of sleep dust from Caterpie and nothing to counter Bulby's grass onslaught. After escaping the second gym unscathed, I get hired as a private detective to investigate a burglary. By looking at a set of footprints left clumsily by the perpetrator, I determined the culprit to be none other than a Psyduck. But when I find the Psyduck, it looks weird and challenges me to a battle, which it proceeds to lose. Anyways, It drops the TM dig as it runs, and Kingpin gets its first ground move. I make my way down to Vermilion, where I get an old rod from someone who used to work at a Bass Pro Shop. It's pretty old, so it can only reel Magikarp, but that's fine by me, because they're pretty easy to catch. I snag one and name it Carpe Diem. I proceed to grind up in the nearby grass. However, I can't quite get it to level 20, so it can evolve into a Gyarados, as the switch training I was doing to grind Carpe had gotten the rest of the team too close to the level cap for my comfort. I could technically take it to the daycare and just run around until it hits level 20, but I can't do that either since I wouldn't be able to buy her back from the daycare owner. Thanks to this little XP predicament on my team, I have to dodge pretty much every trainer until I get to the next battle with Turdell. That battle goes pretty much the same as last time, as, while the team is small, we have a counter to everything he has. Before leaving the cruise ship we fought Turdell on, I have to give the captain a message apparently. When it's over, he asks for a quote-unquote happy ending, to which I respond no and threaten to call the cops. The captain apologizes and, in return for me not calling the cops, offers to give me the TM cut. I begrudgingly accept and move on. Thanks to this cursed gift, I'm able to make my way to Lieutenant Surge, who Bulby and Kingpin make quick work of. Probably could have solely used Kingpin here thanks to his ground type giving him electric immunity, but I didn't want to risk putting him over level cap. Speaking of the level cap, now that it's at 29, I finally switched train comfortably enough to get Carpe Diem to evolve. And while grinding Carpe up to a Gyarados, I find a Great Ball to the right of Vermilion. And with that, I slap the TM Water Pulse on her and fly through Diglett Cave, no worries. On the other side, I meet up with a research assistant in a random Waffle House. Thanks to all the evolution my Pokemon underwent, I barely meet the RA's requirements, and he gives me the HM Flash in return. After which, I head over to another cave and, fittingly, find our first rock encounter. With some of my main worries in the late game being flying types, and given the easy catch rate for Geodude, I snag it with one ball and give it the name Rockefeller. From there, yada yada yada, I make my way to Celadon, where I immediately go acquire the free Eevee because my broke ass needs every Pokemon I can get. Given how it's probably the most versatile Pokemon, I name it Bread, after one of the most versatile foods I know. After packing our bread, I make my way over to the grass gym, where I cockily walk in without a plan. For the first time this run, I am truly challenged, as the sheer bulk of Erica's team, along with her affinity for status conditions, end up foiling my idea to outmuscle her with a combo of Caterpie, Vegeta, and Kingpin. The run looks in danger when I get to Erica's last Pokemon, Vileplume, and the big three are all in a bad state, until I realize something after seeing all her moves. The only two attacks Vileplume has are Giga Drain and Acid. Given how Giga Drain only has 5 PP, I decide to stall it out with my various teammates. From there, I can send out Carpe Diem, who can use his Intimidate ability to reduce the damage of Vileplume's only remaining attack, Acid, which, due to Gen 3's weird special physical mechanics, is a physical attack. In doing so, allowing the Serpent to spam her recently acquired move, Dragon Rage, which takes away a flat 40 HP every time. After a couple, I'm able to knock out Vileplume and carry on. I head to the casino for a nice vacation from the chaos, only to remember I'm broke and can't afford any tokens. Some Team Rocket member makes fun of me for it, and I decide to take my anger out by wiping out his entire headquarters. While there, I do find a couple nice items though, including a super and a hyper potion. Oh, and I get a fancy monocle or whatever that lets me see Ghost. So, I go back to the Ghost Tower where I find Turdell. Like a middle schooler who just lost his 20th COD game in a row, he threatens death. The only thing that dies though are his hopes of beating me, as I wipe the floor with him once again. Having shaken that bug off me, I go upstairs and Paranormal Activity style catch me a ghost. However, instead of catching it on camera, I catch my ghost with a single Pokeball and dub her Rick Ghastly. Also, shout out to Sleep Powder and Leech Seed. Using these on first stage evolutions has really gone a long way with making the most of the few Pokeballs I have. Anyways, I go upstairs, find a Great Ball on the floor, and then stumble across an old man. He says he's the brother of that perverted ship captain, so I tell him what happened on the SS Anne, and he gives me a Pokeflute to keep me silent. Wait, phrasing, wait, no, shut up, I didn't mean. Afterwards, we can finally wake up Sleepy Boy number 1 and head to Poison Town, where I go visit the Safari Zone. Also, it's worth noting that I kinda have to break the no money rule here, You see, the game forces you to spend 500 V-Bucks, or whatever you call them, to get in the Safari Zone, which I need to do to get 2 of the 8 gems needed to beat the game, Surf and Strength. So I spent what I gotta spend, but since I technically wasn't allowed to use money, I mitigate this by not picking up any of the plethora of items that are not the aforementioned disc. Anyways, I decided to make my way back to Celadon after realizing how underleveled the team is for the gym here. From there, I tried to go into Saffron, but some guard won't let me. What do you know? He's the son of the captain of the SS Anne, so I blackmail him by spilling the tea on what happened on the boat, forcing him to let me into Saffron. There, I find a bunch of rocket goons have taken over. One tells me to get lost, so I do just that, and find myself lost in her new headquarters or whatever. And look who I run into. Turdell, who was conveniently in my way again. This dude is everywhere, man. I swear to God, I cannot. Oh, and to make things better, he's actually tough now, in large part thanks to the Gyarados, Alakazam, and Charizard that are now on his team. Learning from our scare at the grass gym, I actually make a plan this time and teach my Pokemon some TM moves before taking them on. I lead off with Rockefeller, knowing Turdell will start off with his Pidgeot. We toss a stone his way, and down goes the bird. Out comes a set of eggs, who I easily counter with my own Pidgeot. Then, one of the dreaded Big 3 shows his face in Turdell's Alakazam. Given how he's a special attack beast that's rocking Calm Mind, he seems pretty intimidating. However, if you take a peek at the rest of his moveset, you'll notice its only attack move is Future Sight, so we can gain this pretty easily by taunting him. I do just that with Rick Ghastly, forcing Alakazam to only use the aforementioned Future Sight. While I stop him from going in a meditative rampage with Calm Mind, I kinda screw myself in the process, as he's able to get a Future Sight off before I swap Rick out. And, due to some whack Gen 3 logic, Future Sight's damage is based off who it was aimed at the time of use. And given how Rick Ghastly is a poison type, this didn't bode well. I swap her out for Carpe, knowing the latter has the highest special defense on the team, and hope for the best. Thankfully, it only takes a third of Carpe's health, and I'm able to knock the Magician out with a Rain Dance boosted Surf. However, Turdell pulls an Uno reverse card on me, by sending out his Gyarados thereafter. Wanting to save Carpe's health for the ensuing Charizard, I swap to Caterpie, who I use to put Gyarados to sleep. From there, I go to Rick Ghastly, who I use to hit him with the Confuse Ray. With these 2 status conditions, I now feel safe enough to curse the Water Snake, which I wanted to do despite the risk, because we didn't have much else to really counter the Gyarados at this point. Albeit, I get a little lucky as Gyarados wakes up and hits through the confusion, only to waste his sole chance to kill Rick by using Leer. Thank Arceus for the AI being incompetent. Anyways, my dumb ass proceeds to send out a ground type to finish the water type, and it somehow works, as Kingpin's new Rock Tomb and the effects of Curse are enough to send Gyarados packing. Last but not least, out comes Charizard, who I'm the most worried about given how it's way faster than all of my team and it's rocking a hard-hitting flamethrower. So I swap to Carpe, who's able to eat just enough hits to get off a Rain Dance. With his Downpour weakening the strength of all fire moves, I now feel confident enough to swap to our real counter, Rockefeller, whose abysmal special defense had me worried regardless of the type advantage in a fair weather scenario. Anyways, our Rich Rock comes out and tosses a 4 times effective Pebble to knock the dragon out of the sky, giving Turdell his 6th L of the run. That's so cheesy. This whole thing is so cheesy. Who wrote this? Phil! Who wrote this? Was it the intern? Was it the intern? Because if so, he's done. He is fired. I cannot keep reading this shit. A local spectator rewards us for the heroic victory by giving us a free Lapras, who I named Going Merry, as a nod towards One Piece, which I have become horribly addicted to in recent months. After grinding up Merry a little bit, we mollywomp Giorno, and some rich dude says he'll give us anything in return for helping him. I ask for free healthcare, and he chuckles, only to give me a Master Ball instead. Oh, and somewhere in here I also found an Ultra Ball, but I have no clue where it's at in the footage, so please just take my word for it. With the Master Ball, I head back to Celadon and immediately chuck it at the Snorlax, who is conveniently just outside the city's borders, so its encounter doesn't overlap with Eevee's. I name the big boy Chowder, and then go back to Saffron to train the local gym. No, not that one. That one. There, we get another gift Pokemon in Hitmonlee, because the gym bros think we're tough after we wipe the floor with them. I name it Rock Lee, and finally go back to our grind for the real gym badges. Since the level cap is the same for the next 2 gyms, I decided to keep the team a little under leveled so we don't go over the cap halfway through these battles. And because of which, I start off with who I think is the weaker of the two, Koga, the poison gym leader. This battle can be a little tricky for 2 reasons. First and foremost, one member of Koga's team is a Muck that carries the moves Minimize, Acid Armor, and Toxic. If you aren't quick, Muck can get enough Minimizes up to make it damn near impossible to hit. Furthermore, at that point it can begin to fix the only weakness in its otherwise bulky base stats by spamming Acid Armor to sharply boost its mid physical defense. Throw in how it can hit you with the Toxic, and it's easy for Koga's Muck to sweep you if you get cocky. The second reason this battle can get out of hand is because it's not just his Muck that runs Toxic, it's his whole team. However, I have counters for both these issues. For Muck, look no further than our newly acquired friend, Going Mary, and her Perish song. Given how the latter always hits and forces all who hear it and stays out in battle to die in 3 turns, I can either force Koga to swap out of Muck, removing its stat boost, or outright kill it. And, as for the rest of this team rocking Toxic, we have not 1, but 2 poison types on our team who can eat any poison moves and avoid becoming poisoned themselves in Kingpin and Rick Ghastly. Between these 3 and the general bulk of the rest of the team, we're able to overwhelm Ninjago and move on. Now that we can use Surf outside of battle, I head over to the power plant where we catch Voltron, the Voltorb, and snag a couple useful items along the way. A Thunderstone notably being one of them, I proceed to give our shiny slab to Bread as a chew toy and puberty hits, causing him to evolve into a Jolteon. After, we head back to Saffron one last time to go take on the Psychic Gym leader, Sabrina. She's usually a run killer, but like Koga's Muck, so long as you don't mess around with her ace, in this case Alakazam, you should be good to go, as the latter runs Calm Mind, and just 1 or 2 of those can be enough for Sabrina to sweep. Thankfully, the Spoon Magician is as good as wet paper versus physical attacks, hence why I used our Master Ball on Snorlax, as he not only has great attack, but excellent special defense to boot, making him a perfect counter to an Alakazam. Once you get past our yellow friend here, it's fairly easy to outmuscle the rest of our team. With the mainland taken care of for now, we set sail on the Going Merry to a nice island resort called Cinnabar, although the Airbnb we got seems haunted. At the very least, we get a max potion and a full restore out of it. Oh, and some friendly dude in the nearby lab revives the fossil Pokemon we grabbed earlier, giving us S-Star Go, Neoma Star. With our new friend, I build a rain team and take on Blaine severely underleveled without looking at his team. Because let's face it, the run's been a little bit dull. Guess what? I pay the price for my ignorance, and Rockefeller goes down to a Fire Blast from Blaine's ace, as I forget about the aforementioned special defense issues with Boulder Fella. Alas, we get our act together by throwing up a rain dance, boosting the surfs of our largely water-themed team and dampening the power of Blake's Fire Blast. The gym is caked from there. We walk out of the gym, ready to hold a service for Rockefeller, when Bill offers us a getaway to a different island. Wanting to try and secure one last party member, I accept, despite the circumstances. There, we beat up a bunch of bikers and find a Hypno trying to perform similar deeds to the captain of the SS Anne. Completing our character arc, we save the target of this assault from the Hypno by capturing the latter. We name it HIPAA because I'm pretty sure it was committing a HIPAA violation, and sentence it to jail, where it can never see the day of light again. Oh, and we run into that Giorno guy again at the last gym, and sort of kind of maybe waterboard his team. Shortly thereafter, we run into another frequent visitor in Turdell. However, unlike our buddy Geo, Turdell gives us a scare. While I'm able to mindlessly go through most of his team, I disregard my own advice and mess around versus Alakazam, who, like every Spoon Wizard in this game, carries Calm Mind. In turn, nearly knocking out my counter, Chowder, and a single Psychic thereafter. With most of the team hurt, and the few options of full health being unlikely to live a Psychic, I sent out Caterpie, planning to sacrifice it so Vegeta could come out and quick attack the glass cannon, threatening the run. In another confusing act of AI tomfoolery, Alakazam uses Future Sight instead of directly attacking our sweet Butterfly, buying us just enough time for a yawn I used with Chowder to kick in. And, since Caterpie is already paralyzed, we avoid getting put to sleep by Spoonman's Synchronize ability. Not wanting to waste a turn of sleep to pivot to another Pokemon, I see this as a sign Caterpie has to beat Alakazam, so I stay in and risk it with Thief. Lo and behold, we don't get paralyzed and save the run. After the battle, we make our way through Victory Road, finding a full restore, an Ultra Ball, and a full heal. Before you know it, we finally make it to the Elite Four. There, I go on one last item hunting spree. In addition, I make use of Caterpie's Thief to steal some mushrooms for some mushroom crabs and give them to the Mushroom Man who helps our team remember some moves. When all is said and done, we have the following healing items. A quick reminder, since I can't spend money, this is all we'll have to heal us during the Pokemon League, so we're gonna have to get creative. After some planning, I come up with the final team. Carpe Diem the Gyarados, Chowder the Snorlax, Rick Ghastly the Haunter, Going Merry the Lapras, Estargo the Omastar, and Bread the Jolteon. With one final look at the outside world, we take off on what will be the final leg of our journey. First up is Lorelei, the Ice-type user. She leads off with a Dugong, and I lead off with Going Merry, knowing that all the attacks from the former will either A, not hurt Merry due to her water absorbability, or B, be 4 times resistant. From there, I immediately get off a Perish Song, which might be confusing considering it'll kill both Going Merry and whoever hears it in 3 turns. However, an important lesson from my battle with Koga ends up defining my strategy here. You see, back when I faced him, I fucked around and didn't kill his Muck before he set up an alarming amount of minimizes. So, to force his hand to switch, I made Going Merry use Perish Song and swapped out the Kingpin. Rather than let Muck die to the Song of Death, however, CPU opted to swap out Muck on the last possible turn to avoid it falling to such a fate. I know it's a small sample size, but I assumed the CPU would act similarly going forward. So, I waited a turn and hit a Rain Dance before swapping Merry out, hoping the Perish Song would force Lorelei to swap out Dugong as well, assuring a clean swap for Bread. This was especially critical because it allowed Bread to avoid a rain boosted Surf from the Dugong, helping me save healing items all while allowing my Jolteon to be out for nearly the entirety of the rainfall that ensued. Lo and behold, Dugong does swap out at the same time as Bread swaps in, and thanks to the weather, and from a painful lesson from my previous run, I'm able to get off a series of accuracy boosted Thunders, aka the most powerful electric attack in this game. Given how nearly all of Lorelei's team is part water, this allows me to one-hit 3 of her 5 Pokemon before I run into her only Pokemon not weak to electricity, Jinx. This was a tad problematic since Lipstick here actually has decent special defense. So I pivot to Carpe Diem and hit her with a return, making use of Jinx's Achilles heel, her physical defense. We one-hit KO her, and out comes Lorelei's last Pokemon, a Lapras. I match it with our own, and hit it with Cruise by the Florida Georgia line, making the foe's ears bleed. From there, I stall until the song ends its life. Albeit, I mispredicted Lapras using a Body Slam, as it had been spamming it, and sent out Rick Ghastly, only to get hit by a Surf. So, while I get the dub, I do have to use a couple healing items to refresh the team thereafter. Luckily, the casualties aren't major, and I only end up using all my basic potions, an Ether, and a Hyper Potion. Next up is Bruno, the fighting type specialist. Despite his branding, he sports 2 Onyxes, neither of which are fighting types. This little mistake of Bruno's is the key to my victory. You see, I don't normally say a Pokemon is bad, but at this stage in the game, Onix is pretty bad thanks to it only being good at physical defense. But more on that strat in a little bit. First up is one of the aforementioned Rock Snakes, whose world I rock by hitting it with an Ice Beam, taking advantage of its garbage special defense. Bruno follows up with a Hitmonchan. Given how it has some stab fighting moves that are super effective versus Going Merry, I successfully predicted it'll use one and swap out to Rick Ghastly, who's immune to Witch. From there, I outmuscle it with a couple Psychics, which I taught Rick via a TM shortly before the league. Finally, my opening to finish this makes an appearance, Bruno's second Onix. I respond by pivoting to Carpe Diem, and my plan unfolds. You see, between Onix's aforementioned poopy attack stat and Carpe getting Intimidate off on him to further lower it, I get a perfect chance to make use of Carpe's new move, Dragon Dance. I throw up a couple of those bad boys, and I'm good to sweep from there. This was especially clutch because I feared I didn't have anything that could otherwise take out Bruno's ace, a champ that was rocking Guts, Bulk Up, and enough coverage to hit every member of my party. With this Onix coming out first, I was able to get a setup for a sweep of my own. Admittedly, this was kinda risky, as the whole plan baked on this specific Onix coming out before the Machamp. Why? Well, if you look at Bruno's team on Bulbapedia, you'll see he's rocking 2 Onixes. The first of which, while similarly weak, has the move Roar. Were I to try and set up on it like I did with Carpe versus the other rock fella, I likely would get sabotaged midway via forced swap out. Thankfully, I was able to guess which Onix was which, since I've noticed Bulbapedia tends to be pretty right about which Pokemon AI will lead with, so all I had to do was wait for the second Onix. However, on the off chance Machamp came out first, this battle would have likely been a lot bloodier, as my counter to that was to immediately pivot to Brett and get off a Roar before the forearm freak could start getting some bulk ups off. Given how the gym leaders tend to save their highest Pokemon for last, I assumed the same would hold here and took the risk that we wouldn't need plan B. Nonetheless, the strat worked. Afterwards, we use our last super and hyper potions to return to full health and move on. We step into the following room to find Agatha, the ghost type specialist. I give Chesto Berries to Chowder and Estargo, and start the battle. She leads with a Gengar whose only attack move is Shadow Punch. Knowing this, I had 2 plans. Plan A revolved around swapping between Rick Ghastly and Chowder to stall out the PP of her sole attack. Alas, this doesn't happen, as Agatha starts off with Double Team. While I don't have anything to actually prove this, I have noticed that when an AI uses an evasiveness boosting move, they tend to spam it. Going off this hunch, I go to plan B and pivot to Mary, who gets off a Safeguard the first chance she gets. Upon a closer look at this Gengar's moves, half of which are dedicated to inflicting status conditions. One of those 2 moves being Confuse Ray, which Gengar hits us with the second Mary lands on the field. However, we still managed to get the Safeguard up, giving me 5 turns where I don't have to worry about those moves. From there, I swap to Chowder, who proceeds to slap his tummy and max out his attack in exchange for half his health, giving me a great setup to sweep as long as I can hit this Gengar that has just gotten its 3rd double team up. It's gonna have to hit soon too, because once Safeguard runs out, Chowder can get confused, and if he hits himself with maxed out attack, it's gonna do a lot of damage. However, I had a backup plan in case this didn't work. So I risk it and stick with the strat by spamming Rock Slide, which I taught to Chowder via a move tutor shortly before the league so he could hit ghost types. We missed the first one, but luckily land the second, one-shotting the Gengar. Agatha follows up with Golbat, who could also screw up the sweep thanks to its access to Confuse Ray as well. Predicting this, I use Resto Chesto to get Chowder back to full health, and hopefully give us a shot at one attack before a potential confusion forces me to swap. Albeit, my worries end up being pointless, as the AI tries Air Cutter for some reason, as we one-shot it with a Body Slam. From there, 2 of Agatha's 3 remaining Pokemon go down in a single hit as well. Chowder's sweep gets abruptly halted, however, when her last Pokemon, Honor, lands a Hypnosis on him. Since it rocks me Look, Dream Eater, and Curse, Chowder is clearly at a disadvantage, so I swap him out for Estargo, who I gave our other Chesto to as a possible counter to the 2 Pokemon on Agatha's team with Hypnosis. Berry comes in clutch, as Honor tries to put her to sleep as well, only to ironically come up fruitless, as this gives Estargo a free turn to get off a bite. And with that, we snag ourselves our cleanest E4 victory yet. In the aftermath, I only have to use an Awakening and a Max Potion to fully rejuvenate the team. Next up comes Lance, the Dragon Master. This is where things start to get tricky, as I only have 4 potions left, and since everyone on his team runs Hyper Beam and half of them run Safeguard, it's going to be hard to set up and get out of here relatively unscathed. For better or worse, I start the battle and brace for impact. The battle kicks off, and we both lead with the Gyarados. From there, I put up a Rain Dance and swap back and forth between Carpe and Chowder to get 2 Intimidates off on Lance's fish before I ultimately pivot to Bread, helping ensure a softer landing for the latter. With the Drizzle still effective, I go for a Thunder and knock out the Gyarados. Smooth start so far. However, things get complicated from here, as I want to do everything I can to keep going Mary at full health for Lance's ace, a Dragonite who I can one hit with Mary's Ice Beam. So, the rest of the team has to take the burden until then, as I don't want to mess around with a Pokemon who is that strong nonetheless holding a Citrus Berry. Anyways, out comes Dragonair, who I counter by pivoting to Estargo. I try to kill it with a Blizzard, but given the move's low accuracy, we miss, and by the time I get one off and end the string bean, Estargo is at low health. From there, we go to Carpe, who outmuscles the next Dragonair, but also gets the low HP in the process. Then comes out the man who threatens the whole run, Aerodactyl. You see this thing? It's fast. Real fast. And it hits hard. While I do stack up pretty well versus it on paper, 2 of my counters likely couldn't last a turn with it given their aforementioned wounds, leaving Brett and Mary. However, I already wanted to save the ladder for Lance's ace, and I wanted to be careful with Bread as I needed to counter the Gyarados in the final battle. So, I tried to even the playing field with the 2 remaining Pokemon on the team, Chowder and Rick Ghastly. Out comes the former, and since I know I likely won't be able to finish the job with him, I spam Body Slam, hoping to get a paralysis. However, this doesn't work, and Chowder gets low enough that I have to swap him for Rick. True to her name, Rick Ghastly never gives up and tries to outspeed the Aerodactyl only to take her typing to literally and instead become a ghost type, as the Rock Bird gets in the first shot. However, she doesn't go out in vain, as this gives Brett a chance to come out and get in a Shockwave, ending the Fossil's reign. And lastly, out comes the Dragonite, who goes down in one hit to one of Mary's Ice Beams, completing the plan. However, this fight has taken a significant toll on the team, as we only have enough healing items to get all the remaining members but one back to full health prior to the finale. After some careful thought, I decided to only use a Citrus Berry on Mary, and leave her at half health. With that, here we were, the final battle, the penultimate test of this run. All that stands between us and glory is him, he whose grandfather forgets his name, he who stinks like no other, Turd L. Things kick off with a Pidgeot on Carpe Diem matchup. The latter's Intimidate kicks off, and I get a Rain Dance in before swapping to Bread. 5 seconds later, Pidgeot looks like he stuck a fork in an outlet, as it gets sapped by an accuracy boosted Thunder. Turd L tries to counter my Electric Bread with his Ride-On, but the only thing he ends up riding on is the train to Pain Town, as I predict an otherwise super effective ground move and go for Carpe, who one-shots with a Surf the first chance she gets. And out comes the 50th Spoon Wizard of the run. We match up pretty good though, as Carpe has solid special defense, and a hard-hitting physical move in return. So, we return Alakazam to sender after Turd L attempts to save his doomed Pokemon with potions. He follows up with an Executor, and we pivot to Chowder. From there, we get a battle of sleep versus paralysis, as the former puts the latter in nap time with a sleep powder. And, upon waking up, Chowder is able to get paralysis off via Body Slam. I mean, who wouldn't get paralyzed by this dude slamming them? He's an absolute unit! But a sleepy one at that, as I try to save him by resting when he gets to low health. Alas, we eventually outmuscle the Eggman and move on. After which, Turtle brings out his Gyarados. I try and use rest again, but I realized I was going to go nowhere with Chowder here, so, just like the last time we fought a Gyarados, I counter by bringing out our own. In an attempt to set up our allies, Carpe gets off an Intimidate and a Rain Dance, but sadly falls in the process. Her sacrifice paves the way for victory though, as it allows Bread to come out and clap, or should I say, thunderclap,
holy moly,
the cheeks of our rivals' last 2 Pokemon, both of whom are flying types who aren't exactly fans of that kind of thing. And with that, we complete yet another hardcore Nuzlocke. Ironically, this time our strategy for most of the E4 stemming from that damned random double battle during the recent Emerald run. Let it be known, never underestimate the climb attack.